Everyone adjusts their HUD at some point, but finding the perfect one, that's a different story. Your layout might look fine, but if it slows you down in fights, it's actually holding you back. Today we're going to adjust your HUD so it actually works the way you want it to be. The most important tip that I've learned when you start to build your HUD is to customize it based on your needs. Like how many fingers will you use? Are you going to be using gyroscope? Screen size of your device? These are just a few factors that you need to consider. I've tried different HUD layouts across many games that I played like PUBG, T3 Arena, Farlight 84, and Call of Duty Mobile. Just like any other player, I use the default HUD, which is designed for two-finger users. But using a two-finger HUD has its limits. It might be convenient and easy at first, but once you climb the ranks, you'll meet lots of sweaty players that will make you want to quit the game. After that, I decided to adjust my controls suited for three-finger users. It was okay for a while, but after some time, I noticed it still lacked something. That's when I decided to learn how to use a four-finger HUD. I'll show you guys different HUD layout recommendations starting from 3 fingers up to a 6-finger HUD layout. To start building your HUD, go to Controls. There are 2 options for the control setup, but I highly recommend the first one because it's more familiar and similar to the control setup in other games, like COD-M in particular. This is the second layout setup. In building your HUD, divide your screen into 4 main sections. You can drag the buttons to the top or center of your screen to be more organized. The most important buttons that you need to prioritize are the joystick button, fire button, ADS button, crouch and jump button. Once you determine the placements of these buttons, the rest becomes much easier to set up because you can just position the other buttons around them. The lower left section is where we normally place our joystick. I also place here the bag and the execution button. The lower right section is basically our swiping area. You might want to place here the buttons that you frequently use since it's easier to reach. I place here the skill buttons, reload button, airdrop wheel, zip line as well as the weapon pickup list. The open icon is the shop and the parachute button. It's a bit crowded but I make sure to have some space left for my swiping area. At the upper right, I place the crouch and jump button as well as the ADS button for cancelling skills and throwables which I place on top of the ADS button for convenience and to save some space. I also place here the map and the scoreboard. I place the fire button, weapon buttons at the upper left section together with the button used to mark enemies. I also place here the small screen panel that displays your teammates' names. This can also be used as a shortcut to redeploy teammates. I place the settings icon at the center as my crosshair. This is a bit difficult to set up because you need to be inside a game. You cannot set this up in the shooting range. You can create a custom room and invite at least one person you know, or just use a Smurf account on a different device. If you don't have any, you can just play one unranked game. It's better if it's in a solo lobby to avoid distractions. Once you are in the game, land at the farthest spot where there are less people so you can take your time to set your crosshair. Making sure that the icon is perfectly placed at the center can be very challenging, so you need to be very patient. What I recommend you to do is to increase the size of the icon and try to place it at the center. If you think that it's in the center, decrease the size based on your preference. There's no shortcut to doing this, just repeat the steps until it's perfectly aligned in the center. I know you might be tempted to just use a Crosshair app, but it's best if you refrain from using any third-party applications to avoid the risk of getting banned. For the size of the buttons, I highly recommend that you place your fingers over them and see if they match the size. You don't want them to be very small to touch or too big that it might overlap with the other buttons. By the way, I'm using an iPad, so if you're using mobile devices with a smaller screen ratio, you might want to relocate some of the buttons. But as I said earlier, the important buttons that you need to prioritize are your movement buttons, the crouch and jump button, ADS button, and the fire button. Once you figure out the placements of these buttons, it will be easy to organize the rest of the buttons. Like for example, the map button can be placed at the top of the screen or you can place it beside the joystick button. The weapon buttons can also be placed at the lower right section. That's what most players do, especially if you're on mobile. This is currently my 4-finger HUD layout. I was using a 6-finger HUD layout before when I was still a non-gyro player. But after using gyroscope, I decided to only use 4 fingers given that my device is a bit heavy. If you're not comfortable with a 4-finger HUD, then I suggest you try this 3-finger HUD setup. Place the movement and ADS buttons on the left side while the fire buttons are on the right side. In this way, you'll be using 2 fingers on the left and only 1 on the right. To be honest, this HUD works best if you're using gyroscope. Instead of swiping using your right thumb, you can rely on gyroscope and just focus your right thumb on pressing the fire buttons. I don't see a lot of people using the fire ADS button, but it's actually very convenient in fast-paced gunfights. Set the right fire button to fire on ADS to remove that slight delay before firing. You might miss your first few shots if your crosshair is not aligned to your target, but if you're using gyroscope anyway, then crosshair placement will not be an issue. I highly recommend this HUD setup, especially if you're using smaller screen devices. If you're using bigger screen devices and don't use gyro, then try the 6-finger HUD that I've used before. I've used this HUD for several seasons, and in fact, this helped me reach the leaderboards in Squad Fight and BR. Here, I have a separate finger dedicated to the important buttons that I mentioned before: the fire button, ADS button, crouch, and jump button. I stopped using this HUD when I started using gyroscope because it's difficult to use 6 fingers while holding the device. After setting up your HUD, all that's left is to practice and build muscle memory. Test your HUD first in the shooting range before going into actual matches. You can try playing a few games but manage your expectations. You'll probably need to make some adjustments to your HUD, like moving some buttons to where your fingers naturally move. It might need some time to fully adapt to your new HUD and build muscle memory, but once you do, everything starts feeling more natural and your gameplay gets way smoother. Which of these HUD layouts do you like the most? Comment down your thoughts and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.
I'm so used to it.